Okay, hi everybody. Can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to talk about the curious case of beneficence as a candidate need and whether it is really a need or not. And I guess Rich already gave away the answer yesterday. Thanks for that. But still, I'm going to start from the beginning, how this project started. Then we will see how it failed in the end. So it all started in 2012. In the summer of 2012, I was in Moscow attending the European Conference of Positive Psychology. And I was minding my own business, chatting with two other PhD students. I was a PhD student at that time. And then Richard Ryan was passing by in the corridor. And then these two other PhD students, they stopped him, wanted to thank him for his amazing work. And then suddenly they went away and I was alone with Richard. And at that point, I knew that, I knew that he was a keynote speaker there. I knew that there's a theory called self-determination theory that has something to do with motivation. But that was all I knew. And I was thinking, okay, here is this big shot keynote speaker. I should say something smart. I asked something stupid, and he gave a very kind answer. Then I excused myself from the situation. But afterwards, I decided, okay, next time I see the guy in a corridor, I will have some very, very smart question to ask from him. So I went back to my hotel room, and then I downloaded this Ryan and Desi 2000 paper. I read that through, and the next day I was attending the keynote by Richard, and he was talking about self-determination theory, obviously. And I guess yeah, you don't have to be told about these three needs, that there's these three needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. But when I was listening to that, then this really smart question came to my mind. So in the conference dinner afterwards, I went to Rich and said, hey, that's a nice theory that you have there, but there should be a fourth need. And that's the need for beneficence, this need to have this pro-social impact on other people. And Rich was surprisingly encouraging when I was talking about this issue. And long story short, then half a year later, I was boarding the plane from Finland to Rochester in order to be visiting scholar in Rochester for 1.5 years to study this topic, this topic of beneficence as a potential need. And if you think about this this helping other people, I guess many of you can recognize this feeling you have when you're able to do something good to other people. That when I look at my own kids, when they were small enough that they couldn't even walk, or at that point they were taking much pleasure out of giving the laundry to us to hang. And on the other side of the life spectrum, when I was doing my dissertation in a nursing home, I was observing in one department there was these few older ladies who were there, and most of the day they were recipients of help. The nurses were helping them throughout their daily errands and so forth. But then there was this one moment where they're able to help the nurses, taking with the laundry. And when I was observing them in this situation, they seemed to be finding the situation very important for them, because that was this one moment when they're actually were able to help other people instead of just being people who are helped by other people. And this is just anecdotal things, but of course there's quite much research also around this this phenomenon of pro-social behavior and well-being. There's studies about volunteering, random acts of kindness, spontaneous helping, which are linked to improved well-being. There's even volunteering is linked to increased lifespan, lifespan. And one of my favorite paradigms is this by Liz Dunn and Laura Aiklin, who have done it several studies on the paradigm where they basically give $5 to people in the morning, and for half of the people they say that here's $5, spend it on somebody else, buy ice cream for your friend, for example. And then for half of the people they say that no, here's $5, spend it on yourself, buy an ice cream for yourself. Then in the evening they contact these people and ask how are you doing right now? And the finding that they get throughout these studies is that the people who spend this $5 on other people actually have higher positive affect in the evening than the people who spend this $5 on themselves. And they have replicated the studies in South Africa, Uganda, India, and even in this small-scale rural society on the Pacific island of Vanuatu. And still, another nice study was done where they used basically the same paradigm, but they increased the dosage. So instead of $5, they gave people $40 on 3 consecutive weeks to spend either on themselves or others. And what they were measuring, because they were older people with high blood pressure, they were measuring their blood pressure afterwards, controlling for the baseline blood pressure. And what they found out was actually this spending money on others on 3 weeks in a row actually led to decreased blood pressure. That they did some supportive analysis to show that it was actually it was not the control condition increasing their blood pressure, but it was benevolence condition decrease in their blood pressure that drove these results. And a recent meta-analysis found 27 different studies on the topic of pro-social behavior and well-being, and found this average effect size of 0.28. And pro-social behavior has been also linked to the reward. When you do pro-social behavior, it's linked to activation in these reward centers of the brain. So based on all these research that's out there, one could ask could this beneficence be this kind of basic psychological need in the same way as autonomy, competence, or relatedness are? And to clear out what is the difference, because one question I often get is what is the difference between relatedness and beneficence? And I would argue that relatedness, of course, it's about feeling connected with others, it's about caring for and being cared for by others, and having a sense of belongingness. So the emphasis here is on being with others, in a sense, the connection I have with other people. And in this beneficence, the emphasis is more on this giving to others. So it's more about positive influence I have on other people. And so beneficence can happen even when I don't have any contact with the people I'm helping. And okay, this is kind of the theoretical way to try to separate them. Then empirically, one question that comes to mind from much of this research on pro-social behavior is that many times if I help my friend, the well-being benefits I get from that, are they the result of me? Result of the helping, or is it result of having this nice encounter with my friend when I'm helping the friend? So in order for that, it's important to look also these anonymous forms of giving, situations where I'm helping other people without actually being in contact with these other people. And there were few studies out there already at that point, but we want to replicate this with the study with also measure a couple of other variables as outcomes. So the study that we did was quite simply this kind of study where people played this very simple computer game. There's a word up there, and then you have to click on the synonym of that word. And you play that game for 10 minutes, and then you answer a brief survey afterwards. And half of the people played this game like this, just playing the game for 10 minutes, and the other half of the people played the same game, but they were told that for every answer you get right, we donate 10 grains of rice through the World Food Program to help end hunger. So the same game, same activities, but just with this pro-social impact. And then when we did the survey afterwards, we found out that that the positive affect was higher for this group who played in this beneficence condition. Meaning was higher also. And then we also had make this Stroop task, which is about this kind of mental exhaustion, and we found difference also there, between these two groups. So showing some evidence that even this anonymous forms of giving can actually increase your sense of well-being. But how to then determine whether this actually is some kind of basic psychological need? And as Ryan did tell, to qualify as a need, a motivating force must have a direct relation to well-being. When needs are satisfied, they should lead to various forms of well-being, and when they're thwarted, they should lead to various forms of ill-being. So it's there's several criteria, and we will go into them more in detail soon. But most important criteria is this, that the satisfaction must lead to wellness. If that criteria is not satisfied, then there's no point in looking at the other criteria at all. So in order to test that we then conduct this other study where we had basically two competing hypotheses. One was that this beneficence sense of having this pro-social impact has direct relation to well-being, even when controlling for these three basic needs. And then the other hypothesis was that actually autonomy, competence, and relatedness might be mediating these relationships, because there was one study by Netta Weinstein and Richard Ryan where they had shown that these autonomous forms of helping were the effect of autonomous forms of helping to well-being was mediated by these three needs. So first we developed a scale to assess this thing, and I put up the items there so you can see what kind of scale it is. So I feel that my actions have a positive impact on the people around me. The things I do contribute to the betterment of society. I have been able to improve the welfare of other people, and in general, my influence in the lives of other people is positive. So these four items were what we used, and then we had this cross-sectional survey where we measured autonomy, competence, and related satisfaction, beneficence satisfaction, and then we had this subjective well-being as an outcome. And then we did this confirmatory factor analysis just to show that these beneficence items are separate, and they turn out to be separate from these other need items. And then when we put these four satisfaction into a regression analysis simultaneously to predict subjective well-being, it turned out that all four of them were significant simultaneous predictors of subjective well-being. So there seemed to be some variance in beneficence that was not explained by these three needs. So we want to then like replicate this thing, but not like in a general way, but like asking people to think about the single happiest event from the last 2 weeks, and then answer the questions based on how they felt during that event. And then we again like ask about this autonomy, competence, and relations satisfaction. Then we ask about beneficence satisfaction. And the results were basically the same. Like again, all 4 of these factors, when put into a regression analysis, were like simultaneous independent predictors of situational well-being in this case. Then like to further like replicate this, we also did this like this daily diary survey where like these university students answered this survey for like 10 days in a row. And before that they had like this pre-survey on like their threat level, need satisfaction. And then we did this like multi-level modeling where like day-level data was nested within the personal level data to see like how that instead of like looking at this like between individual level, we were looking like this within individual fluctuations in need satisfaction and well-being. And what we found out was that like daily autonomy, daily competence, daily relatedness, and daily beneficence were like independent predictors of positive affect, daily fluctuations in positive affect, and daily fluctuations of vitality. And even when like controlling for gender, whether it's a weekend and also like this threat level need satisfaction. So the conclusion of that study was basically that beneficence indeed predicts unique variance in well-being, even when controlling for the 3 established needs. So it's fair to say that beneficence as a candidate need has like passed one crucial test for a potential psychological need. But immediately after that, we of course said that it's like premature to make any conclusion based on this, because establishing something as a psychological needs a much wider line of evidence. And yeah, so then after that we have like now replicated this same thing, like this like satisfaction leading to like well-being like in a couple other ways. Like in one study we looked at like instead of like looking at subjective well-being as an outcome, we looked at the meaningfulness, meaning in life as an outcome, like basically like doing the same kind of studies, but like with the meaning in life in outcome. And in a cross-sectional survey, we found out that all 4 factors again were like predictors of like general levels of meaning in life. Then when we look at like the situational meaning during a peak moment, so think about the personally most meaningful experience from the last 2 weeks. Again, we found out that all 4 of these were like significant predictors of that, and this held out also when we control for a positive affect, because there's like some literature like showing that positive affect is contributing towards meaning in life. So like these results held whether we control for positive affect or whether we didn't control for that. It was the same result, that all 4 of these satisfactions were like independent predictors of meaningfulness. And then we also did this daily diary study with daily meaningfulness outcome, and again the same result, all 4 having like significant independent relationships with daily meaningfulness. And still another study, we had collected like 3 cross-sectional samples from Finland, US, and India with my colleague Tapani Riekki. And in this case, we instead of like life in general, we were looking at meaningful work and like these 4 satisfactions as regards your work. And again, like the results showed that like in Finland, all 4 satisfactions were related to meaningful work. In India, all 4 were like related to meaningful work. And in US, 3 out of 4 were related to meaningful work, with competence not being like significant for some reason. And that's I don't know what's the reason for that, but yeah, it's interesting to study that further in some point. And then also like I'm now at Aalto University in Finland, and I was able to sneak in a couple of SDT questions into the student well-being questionnaire. So like as regards this, they didn't allow me to put competence there because they already had self-efficacy there. But other than that, I was able to put like the autonomy, relatedness, and beneficence questions into there. And when I was looking at interest in studying, all 4 of these seem to be like significantly related to that. And then we also even looked at this European social survey, which is like representative samples in 37 European countries. And like then they have measures for like happiness, life satisfaction, meaning, depression, and basic needs. And for beneficence, I was able to like identify 2 questions from there. How often were you involved in work for voluntary or charitable organizations past 12 months? And do you provide help and support to people you are close to? And these are not ideal measures because they're more about like pro-social behavior than pro-social, like this sense of pro-social impact. But as long as my university doesn't give me the budget to like collect like 48,000 participants from like 37 European countries, we have to do with these measures. And as regards like the results are a bit small here, but we were like here controlling for like various factors like religiousness, age, gender, place in society, household income, education, and country. And still like all 4 of these factors were like significantly related to happiness, meaning, and life satisfaction positively, and negatively with depression. And like the effect size of like this, like estimate for this like beneficence was smaller in general on average compared to like these other 3 needs, but it might have to do with the fact that the measure was not as good as the measure for these 3 needs. So like I guess like one conclusion one could draw from these studies is that that if having independent relations with well-being indicators is like is the criteria for like something being a need, then like it seems that like beneficence is able to qualify. But of course that's not enough. So like what else is then required for something to be a psychological need? And there's actually like some criteria, like you can like find a list of criteria from this great book by Ryan and Dizzy. So like by the book from this just outside the door, and there's like a couple of theoretical criteria first that it must like specify content and it must be a need, not an outcome. So it has to be like the right kind of variable to be studied as a candidate need. And as regards this, one can say that that beneficence is like it specifies content. It says something specific about the relationship between the organism and its environment. It says that I'm able to do something positive towards my environment. And it's also like it's a need and not an outcome of a need satisfaction. It's like something that leads to well-being rather than being like an indicator of well-being itself. So for example, like sometimes meaningfulness has been suggested as a psychological need. And I would argue, and I think Ryan and Dizzy are arguing as well, that like it's not the need, but it's rather like an outcome of basic need satisfaction. So like meaningfulness should be in the same category of variables as positive affect or subjective well-being or life satisfaction, rather than being like one of the candidate needs. But like regards like beneficence, it seems to be the right kind of variable to be studied in this context. Then as regards these empirical criteria, there's like this satisfaction leading to wellness criteria. And as regards that, like I like say that okay, that seems to be something that we have already evidence on. Then there's like a couple of other criteria. This must explain contextual influences of well-being, which is quite much about like the variable being able to like being this like consistent mediator between various environmental influences and well-being. So something that explains why various things are contributing towards well-being. And then there's like the cross-cultural development, like universality. So like one should be able to like collect data like across the world in different cultures and get the same results. As regards these 2 criteria, one could say that more research is needed. There's like few studies that like indicate that they give like some indication about this, but much more is needed before this can be like established. But still, I would argue that the most important criteria that one should look at this moment is like the second criteria, this deprivation leading to illness. Whether like need frustration is something that leads to various indicators of ill-being. And for that purpose, then we developed this benefits frustration scale. So like if benefits and satisfaction is about the sense of having a positive impact on other people, then its opposite, benefits frustration is about a sense of having a negative impact on others. So we develop a scale where there's questions like, I fear that my actions sometimes cause bad things to other people. Sometimes I feel that I'm making other people worse off. I fear that what I do has negative consequences for other people. Sometimes I feel that my impact on people around me is negative. So like this kind of questionnaire was what we used in this study. So like first we developed the scale in one study, and then in the next study we basically like did the same that we did with the satisfaction items. Like so we put these autonomy, competence, and relatedness frustration items in there. We put the beneficence frustration item in there, and then we had like a couple of these ill-being indicators: negative affect, depression, anxiety, and physical symptoms. And what we found out when we put these in the regression analysis that basically, as regards these 3 needs, they had like quite consistent relationship with the ill-being indicators. So like they were like predictive ill-being indicator even when controlling for each other and for beneficence frustration. But as regards beneficence frustration, it didn't have like any connection with any of these ill-being indicators. So like nothing there. So then we want to like replicate this. So we made the same thing that we did to satisfaction. So looking at the single unhappiest event from your last 2 weeks, answer this brief questionnaire. So like then same items as last time, and like this negative affect, situational depression, situational anxiety as outcomes. And again, the same thing as regards autonomy and competence and relatedness, they had like these consistent relationships with these negative affect, situational depression and situational anxiety. So all of them were basically like significant predictors of these ill-being indicators. But as regards beneficence, again, nothing there, like no significant relationship with any of these 3 ill-being indicators. So next, we want to like do like something more experimental. So like we had like this, we recruited participants to the study with this very, very boring task. I will describe it soon. And there are like 3 conditions: pro-social condition, neutral condition, and antisocial condition, and then they answer a brief survey afterwards. And so that this was like how the control conditions looks. That first, people are told that as long as you push the right keyboard button, you will earn some money. For every button push, you get like one cent. So every fourth second, like the letter there was changing. So it was H, then it was B, then it was something else, and you had like 4 seconds to push the right button. And that's a quite long time to push one button, so it's quite a boring task. So people played that for like 4 minutes, and they got like 1 cent for every like correct keystroke. Pro-social condition was the same, but like in addition to like earning money for yourself, you were actually like earning money for the Red Cross. So the Red Cross will get 1 cent for every 4th keystroke, like you get correctly there. And then the antisocial condition was the opposite of that. You know, Red Cross will earn less money. So we thought that the researchers are making this donation to Red Cross, but for every 4th keystroke you do, the sum donated to the Red Cross will be diminished by 1 cent. So that was kind of like the paradigm. And then the results are here, and it's like I like highlighted with yellow all these things where the things which were like significantly different from the neutral condition. And what we find out is first that, you know, pro-social condition, as regard that, the paradigm worked as like expected. So pro-social condition led to like increased sense of benefits and satisfaction, so like which is like a manipulation check, and then it was led to increased sense of vitality and meaning. An antisocial condition in turn that didn't have like any effect on the ill-being indicators. None of the like negative affect, anxiety, depression, there was like nothing happening in these indicators as regards the antisocial condition. Even though like this beneficence frustration was like higher for this condition, so that people were aware of the fact that they were having a negative impact, but still like no effect on the like ill-being indicators. And then there's like few quite like odd results. So antisocial condition, there was like this increased sense of beneficence satisfaction as well as increased sense of beneficence frustration, and then there was also like increased sense of vitality and meaning in the antisocial condition, which was like quite a surprising finding. For some reason, people in the antisocial condition were experiencing also both more beneficence frustration and more beneficence satisfaction, and then they also like experiencing more vitality and meaning. So we want to like replicate this, like to find out what is like causing these odd results. So we did the same thing, like, you know, same procedure, same measures, but we added like two questions in the end. So by participating in this study, I feel I help Red Cross, and by participating in this study, I feel I help scientific research. With the idea being that, you know, that people in the antisocial condition, they're aware that like they have this negative impact in the Red Cross, but they think they're like rationalizing it by thinking that, okay, hey, at least I'm helping the science here. So like they're emphasizing more their impact to the science to like compensate for the fact that they're having a negative impact for the Red Cross. So that was kind of like our hypothesis here. And here are the results again. So yellow might mean significant difference, and blue means marginally different from neutral condition. And as regards pro-social condition, again, we find like, you know, that the paradigm seems to be working as regards that. So like increased sense of benefits and satisfaction, increased sense of positive affect, meaning, and marginally increased sense of vitality. As regards this antisocial condition, again, we find like no effect at all as regards these ill-being indicators. So no effect on negative affect, no effect on anxiety, and no effect on depression. And the odd results from the previous study didn't replicate. So like, you know, that then we perhaps like shouldn't like interpret too much about them because like they didn't replicate. But the main story is like kind of like clear. Like pro-social condition leads to well-being, but the antisocial condition doesn't have like any effect on the ill-being indicators. So like at least like the conclusion based on these these 4 studies is that if having an independent relation with the ill-being indicators is required of a need, then beneficence doesn't seem to qualify. So it doesn't seem to be something which is a need. So that's kind of like the empirical part, and then like conclude, I was like one like theoretical suggestion that I want to make in the end, because if basic psychological needs are something which are like operating like on the both sides of the spectrum, like satisfaction leading to well-being and frustration leading to ill-being, how about could there be also like some factors which are only operate on one side of the spectrum, only satisfaction leading to well-being but not frustration leading to ill-being, or the other way around? In other words, like, you know, if this autonomy, competence, or relatedness, if they're like these basic psychological needs which are like operating like they're both like enhancement needs, like satisfaction leading to well-being, but then there are also like deficit needs, so like frustration leading to ill-being. But perhaps like some factors are something which are like only enhancement needs. For example, beneficence might be a good candidate for something which might be a like enhancement need, and safety, for example, could be something which is like only a deficit need. So when we lack safety, it might lead to ill-being. It's like horrible to be in a situation where you lack the basic resources of life. But like it might be not something which is like enough to make you actually feel well-being. So like having safety might be enough to like not having this active sense of ill-being, but it might not be enough for like active sense of well-being. So as regards these criteria that I described before, so the enhancement need would have the same all the same criteria as like the psychological needs, except for the fact that deprivation doesn't lead to ill-being. And then the growth deficit needs would be something that which like would have all the same criteria as basic psychological needs, but satisfaction is not leading to well-being. So it's like only operating on this deprivation leading to ill-being side of the spectrum. So that's kind of like the suggestion about like how to interpret perhaps these results. That perhaps like beneficence is something which is only this like enhancement need. So that's my like conclusion. So beneficent satisfaction seems to have this independent relation to well-being. Beneficent frustration doesn't seem to have this independent relation with ill-being. And perhaps like then, in addition to basic needs, there might be something like enhancement needs and deficit needs, and beneficence could be something like an enhancement need. But even to make that conclusion, one would need like even more empirical research. So that's all. Thank you.